Okay. Good evening, everyone. I have about 7:03 by my clock, and that one 7:02, I think. I'd like to ask for a roll call, please, from our town clerk.
Glenn Shibley.
Present.
Greg LeBoissonniere.
Here.
Kerry McGee. Karen Carlson.
Here.
Deb Bacon.
Here.
Edward Rosica.
Here.
Nick Gorham.
Here.
Thank you. And Mr. Spearman, I see you in the audience. If you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. And we're still standing. If we could just bow our heads. Dear Lord, we ask for your guidance tonight and your blessings to watch over all of our service personnel in country and overseas, as well as our public safety service people. Been so many shootings, Yarmouth, Weymouth, Falmouth, and very close to home. We ask for your protection over our public safety officials. Amen.
Amen.
And if you could do the evacuation plan if needed, Mr. Spearman. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to agenda item B. Mr. Gorman or Mr. Warzika, our acting town manager, how shall we begin this part?
Thank you, Mr. President. Section B of the agenda is simply the discussion and/or action to approve the collective bargaining agreement between the town and the IBPO, International Brotherhood of Police Officers. The contract that was negotiated by the negotiating team, Member Carlson and Member Bacon, with Labor Council Vincent Regasta, and which was discussed, I think, briefly a week ago in a closed session. It was inadvertently omitted from the general session calendar agenda last time, so we all agreed it should be on for tonight. And so it's on for tonight. It's properly noticed, and I think the board can discuss and, if it wishes, take action on the proposed agreement.
Oh, okay, just a clarification. I don't think it was inadvertently left out. I don't think we had received it, even to read it. Never mind to digest it.
That was simply,
and possibly to vote.
That was simply my understanding.
Okay, well, I think that was
okay.
Misunderstood. I think what we did,
it won't be the first
we heard about
time.
it, and we digested it, and I guess we're here tonight to vote on it.
Okay, thank you.
That's how I understood it. Okay. Mr. Warzika, anything to add to that, or we're here, I know the council members have been given the agreement. We heard about it last week. We briefly discussed it. I guess we're here to vote on it, unless there's any other points of order here. And if not, Mrs. Carlson, maybe I'll turn it over to you to ask for a motion then.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the new contract between the IBPO Local 306 for the period of July 1, 2018 through June 30th, 2021.
I second that motion.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
I have a comment. I just want the taxpayers to know, that my biggest concern, and I think a lot of us, was we have added some longevity, and I understand the reasoning for it because we were losing a lot of police officers, but I did have a little concern about it. But after hearing what the numbers are, it's really not a large amount of money, and I hate us to see us losing our police officers at 15 years and moving on to other departments. But I did have a little concern, but I'm comfortable with it now. I just want to let the taxpayers know that what we had to consider. I did have an opportunity to read over the whole contract over the weekend, and I'm comfortable with it.
And I'd also like to say that I want to thank the officers who participated in the negotiations with council members and Mr. Wazika, and for a short time, Mr. Delaney, and our council, Mr. Ragosta. I think it was pleasure's probably not the right word, but it was not a contentious
Very cordial.
negotiation.
Very cordial.
Very cordial. I think they were very understanding of the financial situation in town at this point, and it really went well. You know, you always hear the bad stories. Well, this time we had no bad stories, and the last time we did the contract, again, it went well. So I want to thank them all for their cooperation, and I want to thank the chief and, oh dear God,
Major Heist.
no, yeah, Major Heist and
Therese.
Therese, I'm so sorry. I just blanked out. That happens. And Cheryl Wilcox, who's not here this evening. But I think it went well, and I think it's a fair and equitable balance over last contract, and it will be public information once it's approved by council.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or any other comments?
To me, in looking at it, it resembled very much the contract that the teachers had with educational-wise as far as dollar amounts and increases. Which I thought were fair, and likewise, I think with the police, it looked like a fair contract. The increases, as I said, I think in that on that longevity, it looked a little daunting, but I agree. I think that it is absolutely fair to try to hold on to qualified, experienced officers. So I'm in agreement.
Okay, and I just, as council person and president, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Carlson and Councilwoman Bacon for putting in the time to go through these meetings and negotiations, etc. I think most people know law enforcement's close to my heart. I decided not to get involved with the negotiations, but I know that they do their public service as officers go throughout every city, every town in Rhode Island, every state in our country. They have a tough battle. And their families battle with them as they go to work. And again, I only have 2 sons that are in law enforcement, but I think it's also a very fair contract. And I do not have anyone on Coventry. So with that stated, we have a motion and a second on this agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Colonel, and the department, and the council, and the town. And let's hope they have a good, productive 3 years and safe 3 years. So, that brings us down to item C on the agenda. I don't know, Mr. Warzika or Mr. Gorham, you want to bring us into the beginning of this? And I know we've discussed it last meeting. I know there's been some clarifications made in the past week regarding the vote tonight. So I guess Counselor may, or I don't care who,
Sure.
who wants to add.
What you
any
have
word.
in front of you attached to the agenda for tonight is kind of a 2-stage. There are some things that are in red and some that are in black. The ones that are in black, that is the changes that are underlined or are stricken. That is the words, there's strike through the words. The black are mine. That was my recommendation, which we discussed last time with some minor changes. I changed the date on page 1 at the very bottom from June to May.
Right. Which we asked
Because
for.
I think we're going to need a little more time for this process. And second, I added in section 8.3 and some amendments to it, which were further amended in red, which I'll explain in a minute. 8.3 pertains to the levy. If you recall, we had a a near financial crisis in June when we passed budgets but not the levy. And so I think it's very important that we amend the financial town meeting in tandem with the section that pertains to levy. So we added levy, section 8.3, with some very minor changes. Now, getting to the red markup. The red markup is there because I believe that since this pertains to the process by which we approve referenda of any kind having to do with money, including our own taxes and levies, I thought I should send this to bond counsel. So our bond counsel being Karen Grandy, she made some changes. Most of them are stylistic. Some of them are substantive. You can pick and choose yourself looking at the red. But I think the changes that she recommended are all good, and I think I sent all of you an email over the weekend saying that I endorsed them. I think they're just fine. The other thing that came up was I was asked to give an opinion about whether or not we can do this without vetting it with a Charter Review Commission, and my answer was yes, we absolutely can. The Rhode Island Constitution, Article 13, Section 8, gives this legislative body the right to do this, and I think our charter acknowledges that section of the Constitution explicitly, because it says the charter can be amended at any time as provided in the Rhode Island Constitution. I'm not going to go into the details of the opinion that I gave the council unless you want me to, or someone wants to ask a question, but there's no question that this body can do this. And just to assure you a little more, bond counsel Karen Grandy examined my opinion that was transmitted to you, and she said today that she agrees with my opinion completely. Okay. So, with that assurance, it's now a question of whether you want to put this on the ballot or not.
Okay. I know you're 1 day, actually, or 2 days, technically, Mr. Warzika. Anything else to add to the question that is before the council tonight, to at least have the voters have a vote come November? I know that it has to come in this next week to qualify to be on the ballot. And again, it's not that it's going to pass, it's just allowing the voters to decide if they want a change or not.
That's it. That's simply what it is. It's giving the
it
voters the opportunity to make that choice on whether or not they want to make this change and go to the all-day rep.
Right.
And eliminate the FTM the way we know it today.
Right. And obviously, if it didn't pass, it would refer back
Stay the same.
to
It would stay the way it is.
The same it is. And the way it's been for, well, let's put it, my 39 years here in Coventry and 34 years of starting on the council and a few times in between. Okay. Well, all right. So basically, we have the changes or the adjustments. We've discussed that. We had a public hearing on that last meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the question to put on the ballot, so let people decide what their pleasure is.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion made. Do I have a second?
And I'll second it for the changes that were put through. The only thing on this resolution, it's I noticed up front, it says July 23rd,
Yep.
which was originally put together for last week at the top. The
So it has to be-
second paragraph, and it just needs to be changed to July 30th, I would think. Right?
I
Well,
think the town
yeah,
clerk will
okay.
so note. Yeah.
Yeah, just so noted. Other than that,
Again, examine it. The first one on the 23rd, council, it was addressed at the meeting. I don't know if that would be changed, or more specifically, page 5 of 5, where pass and adopted would be the 30th.
Yes.
Not
Or
the
add
23rd.
its meetings of July 23rd and July 30th. We
Well,
Or,
we
yeah,
add
it could be both,
You didn't
too.
really pass it
Well,
until
yeah.
tonight, though.
Right.
Well, yeah,
I think it should be changed to 30th.
On both?
On both, yep.
Okay. So, on the first paragraph, or second paragraph, first page, page 2, I guess, technically, it'd be changed to, July 30th. And then, on the fifth page, if it passes, that would also be on the 30th day, of July. Okay. So, motion has been made and seconded with those, amendments. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to make, just to make a comment, if I may.
Yes,
Just to
you can.
reiterate on what our solicitor and our acting town manager has spoken. There's been some concern that this was going to take the rights away from people to amend the money at the financial town meeting. This is strictly letting the people vote on whether they want to change that the financial town meeting has where they want. It's given the people the opportunity to vote. I think us as elected officials we did last FTM time, we presented a reasonable budget, and I guess a couple of $100,000 was added by a few hundred people that attended the financial town meeting. If that would have went to an all-day referendum, very possibly that it wouldn't have passed. I think we did a good job of presenting a reasonable budget, and then if the people do not want it, if this change goes through, they just vote in the all-day referendum. It would give the opportunity for the 37,000 people we have in town to get out and vote rather than having 400 or 500 people. So this is strictly just to put it on the ballot. We're not taking anything away from anybody. It's just giving them an opportunity to vote yes or no.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your comments. And next comment, anyone?
Me.
Okay, Mrs. Carlson.
I'm incredibly perplexed by that statement. Okay, I have to stop because, let me start from the beginning. Number one, the way this is written, and Mr. Gorman and I have gone back and forth about whether or not I think it's the council's prerogative or not to make charter changes. But he's the attorney and I'm not, and so I guess that's the way it is. I think there should be a charter review commission. Don't know why we're rushing this. Yes, it's a by-election year. It's not a presidential election, so there's going to be a lot lower turnout. But just because one FTM really went sour, I don't see why we have to rush this year. The next time it would be on the ballot is 2020. So, okay, there'd be 2 more FTMs in the format that we do now. How anybody cannot think we're taking away the taxpayers' right to amend the budget, I don't understand. It says right here that that whole area is just completely redlined. Amendments. There's nothing in here anymore for amendments to the budget. We all know that budget hearings are not the most exciting things, although they can be depending on what's going on. And they're kind of not well attended. We might have 35,000 people, but actually 20-something thousand are voters. The rest are kids, so they don't count. They do count, but they're not voting. I have a lot of issues with this. The school committee did not weigh in. We got 2 emails. I got 2 emails. They had plenty of notice for last Monday. All of us know that you can look at an agenda on the Secretary of State's website. If they didn't come, they didn't come. But I don't think it's fair to make this change from June to May, knowing how hard it is for them to get their budgets done. Now, we're going to have, hopefully, a new finance director. The old finance director had a lot of issues getting that budget done for June, because there's also the audit going on. There's all kinds of reporting to the state that you have to have done. Right, Mr. Wazika? You got to get these numbers into the state before the financial town meeting?
Before the financial town meeting,
Right.
but after the budget has been put together and approved, recommended by the council.
Recommended by the council, but you still have, so does that mean we start discussing budget hearings a month ahead of where we're doing them now?
Yeah, it means we would start the process earlier. We
Right.
would bring it forward or backwards so we get it done, and we're actually giving us more time with this by going to May for the FTM and allowing for that time where this year we barely got everything done.
How does it allow more time if it's a month earlier?
Well, because the FTM will be May, it gives us more time
Right.
to get,
Oh, to the state,
if a budget is
Right.
not passed
right.
at the all-day referendum,
Right.
we then still have nearly 2 months to rework everything. Where this last FTM, we were begging the state to get our responses
Yes.
back within a day, and it just made it really tight to try to get that done before the end of that current
I
fiscal
agree.
year.
I agree.
So that's where it's helping us there. And
But I'm talking about the internal.
the internal, it's just gonna mean we started a little bit earlier. That's not gonna be.
Well, fine, we can shrug and say, oh, we just start earlier, but we know how hard it is to get all those numbers put together. We're going to have, this is almost August. Who knows when we're going to get a new a financial director. That's going to be a lot of pressure to get this done a month earlier. I don't understand why we've got to do this right now. We could call a charter commission, and there could be other things that could be on the charter changes for the next ballot, not this ballot. Also, we're sitting here going, okay, so we need to do this tonight, and we need to let the people decide. Well, how come we couldn't let the people decide on the term limits last week? It's fine for them to decide on this, which is taking away their rights, but we couldn't let them decide if we need term limits. That makes no sense to me at all. There was something else. Okay, so I just don't agree that this is, and another thing. So however it's written on the ballot, if this whole thing is put on the ballot, and I don't know if the crossouts are put on, if the red line version is put on, we better do a damn good job explaining this before November. Because I can almost double damn guarantee you that people are going to go into that ballot box and they're not going to realize we've taken away their right to amend the budget. And that's what the other thing. We might have lots of hearings, but we've never had somebody stand up there and then we amend the budget because they made a suggestion. So this is completely this is like having a mayoral government. We don't have a mayor. We have a town council. And this is what I said last week. Why bother even having hearings? Let's just make the decisions ourselves. This is not constitutional as far as I'm concerned, and we're taking away rights.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councilwoman Bacon? Your turn.
Thank you. I agree with Karen. I think I said it last week also. Taking away the rights of the voters, this is just plain wrong, and we should not be doing this. We shouldn't be rushing into this.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what we're doing. We haven't heard from the school department. What did the school department say? They never even put it on their agenda for Thursday. I don't understand why. They had plenty of time. I don't know why Craig Levis didn't put it on, so we don't know what they have to say. We have not heard from their finance director. Is she able to do this? What does she think about the May deadline? Anyone?
Crickets.
I guess it's okay. We are rushing to this, and we should not be. And I think it's wrong. The fact, again, we're going to push this on the voters, taking away their voter rights, but we couldn't put term limits. That couldn't go on the ballot?
I don't think that's germane to this discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you.
Because that was brought up.
Not even
It was,
We're not-
yes it is,
we're not
because
speaking-
you're saying.
we're not
Terry-
speaking about term
Terry
limits
just
tonight.
said-
We're not speaking about term limits
It's the
tonight.
idea that we
All right.
are putting this in front of the voters, but we
We're not-
couldn't put something else in front of the voters.
We decided not to.
I know you did, Greg,
Well,
because
then
you're a career
that's part
politician.
of what, well, of course, that's what we can do.
Okay.
that's right,
All right.
I'm running.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Bacon.
No,
okay.
I have
I've got a
another.
few more.
Hang
Oh, you
on.
have another comment? Okay. go
No,
ahead.
not a comment. I have a question.
All right, go ahead.
So if this goes to an all-day, this goes to the ballot, this gets approved, when the people go to the all-day referendum, what are they voting on? Are they voting on the school budget and voting on the town, or is it one question, or is it two?
or in a
The
capital
entire budget.
budget?
No,
There's a-
How many
The
questions?
operating budget, isn't that what it states here, the operating budget?
but
The entire
there's,
budget.
yeah, but there's an operating budget of the town and the school, so are there two, is it going to be the town operating budget and then the school operating budget?
They're all gonna be listed
All
there,
listed.
So
the
it's
same way, but it's one vote to up or down on the budget.
on both? So you,
Right, correct. Okay. Any other comments, or Councilman Lavoisier, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I certainly do. The argument that we're taking away the people's rights is just, it's invalid in my mind. Because,
All right, yeah.
excuse me.
Excuse me, nobody asked for anybody from the audience opinions tonight.
Right.
The councilman is talking.
And I'm gonna tell you why.
And
because,
we appreciate,
okay,
we appreciate your, courtesy, I guess is a good word.
The rights to amend this budget, okay? The amount of amendments that can be made to a budget is less than 0.2% of the total budget. And if that doesn't happen, or if it goes higher than that, it has to go to an all-day referendum anyway. And the only thing that changes at that point is the amendment either gets passed or it doesn't get passed. So in my mind, when you have so few people, we've argued that we've had less than 200 people in the past, et cetera. This year we had this other way. To me, an all-day referendum brings everybody into it, and that's what I see over here. We're not taking away anybody's rights. Right. They can vote up the budget or they can vote down the budget. And at this election, they can vote down this change or they can vote it up. And the argument that they don't know what they're voting on is, I didn't say that, but that may be what you're referring to, Mrs. Carlson, that the people aren't going to know what they're voting on if they don't get the information. That's exactly what you're saying.
That's right.
If we
You
don't
just
give
said
it to
If
them,
they
And then
don't
it's our
get the
job to get them,
information-
and we plan
Yes,
on getting the information.
And look how crappy we've done the last few
Well,
years.
maybe we need to improve on that, and that's what we plan
Maybe.
on doing.
And
Correct.
yes,
So-
we do have to do that, but if you're gonna, nobody's arguing
excuse me.
that maybe the financial, no,
Excuse me
not
a
excuse
second.
me.
I said excuse me.
No,
Are you-
you've always cut me off, and you're not
I
doing it
haven't.
this time. No, Glenn,
You're not listening.
I know I'm not. Oh, look
are
who's talking
you-
about not listening.
Excuse me.
No.
Mr. Lavoisier, are you done with your comments before
I-
we have
I am-
additional
I am
second
done.
comments?
I am done.
And I
Out of
haven't
order,
made
and-
mine yet.
And I'm glad that you're running this meeting.
But are you done? Okay,
I am.
okay. Before we interrupted the councilman, I wanted to make sure he was done with his comments. Mrs. Carlson, second time around.
Thank you.
Before the vote.
Sorry, I apologize.
Well,
Don't mean to be unprofessional.
That's okay. I'm with you. Go ahead.
Nobody is saying that the financial town meeting is maybe the best method to do this. You know, an all-day referendum, maybe that's a better way to go, because this last time around, it was horrible. It was like 5.5 or 6 hours, and obviously there were two special interest groups that completely screwed the whole thing up, and there were silly amendments being made. What I'm saying is that's better than no amendments at all from a taxpayer. And I'm just shocked that we're going to take that away. Yes, Mr. Gorham.
Could I just,
Yes.
the way I look at this is that it is a narrowing of the process, but it is a broadening of the participation in approving or rejecting the town budget. And you can't have the latter without the former. You cannot have an all-day referendum where everyone gets to make an amendment if they want to. You just can't do it. It's impossible. The only way to have an all-day referendum is to have a vote, which is what we have after the amendment process anyway, and the participation in the all-day referendum is always exponentially, not exponentially, but significantly greater than we have at the financial town meeting. And the reason for that is that people have more time to vote. They don't have to show up at 7 at night. They have all day to go and vote. And I agree, it's a narrowing of the process. If there were a way where it could be incorporated that you could have amendments during the balloting process of the all-day referendum, that would be great. but it's just not possible. And you just can't get to the people with a number unless you choose a number that has been prepared by one unit. And the most important unit in developing the number is the town council, because they're elected. There's Carlson, and I think Vice President Lapoisonniere's use of the word compromise was very apt here. This is a compromise to do one thing, that is broaden participation while narrowing the process a little bit. That is a compromise. But the question is it a compromise that's worth it? And that's going to be left to the people.
I wouldn't call it a compromise, though, Nick.
No,
Well,
I mean, I would call...
It's not
Well,
about changing the format of the financial town meeting.
Well-
That is not what I'm talking about. An all-day referendum is a better idea, yes, because we probably will get more participation.
Yeah, I think that's good.
I'm talking about the taxpayers of the town not being able to amend the budget.
I know, but there's just no way to do it.
Well,
With an
maybe
all-day
if we took our
referendum.
time and not rush this for this year's ballot, maybe we could come up with a few ways to do this. This is what I'm saying. I don't think we've given this enough time to really give it a lot of consideration. I think that's my problem with this. We haven't thought it through.
I wish there was a way, I mean, to have motions that you could incorporate into a ballot question or a ballot process.
I
an
know,
all-day
that's not
referendum.
going to happen.
I don't think there is one.
No, that
so,
couldn't.
you know, if people think that there must be a better way than this, I'm sure they'll vote no. But this is...
I'm sorry, I just can't imagine that the finance department's going to be ready, whether it's us or across the
I
street.
can tell you the town of Situate, who my firm's represented since about 1947, their financial town meeting is in April. And some of the larger, I know Cheraho School District, their regional financial town meeting for Cheraho has to be well in advance of the financial town meetings of the three towns, Charleston, Hopkinton, and Richmond. I think Cheraho's financial town meeting, regional financial town meeting, it's either March or April. I think it's March. So it's not unusual to have the financial budgets done earlier in the year. It's just a process. It's more a matter of adjustment than
But I
whether
think
it's
that's
possible or
kind
not.
of like when the fire departments changed their annual budget dates and they kind of eased into it. They didn't do it immediately that fiscal year.
I'm
They
just
did it the
giving
next
perspective.
year.
Yeah, I'm
so
just-
that, you know, it gave them time to adjust all their planning. And again, we don't even have a finance director. We don't have a town manager. Are we going to, I mean, what if it happens, God forbid, that we don't get either of those two for another 2 or 3 months? Brand new, off the stick, running in the door, are they going to be able to get all this done? Then maybe we should, if we're going to change the FTM, not do it for, 2019, work it into 2020. I'm just thinking procedurally, this could really be a problem.
Okay.
Mr. Wazika?
The way the budget process goes now, all this would mean is that the department heads would present their budget a few weeks earlier. The process is going to take the time that the process takes. It just means that the department heads will get theirs in earlier, and we begin and do what we do throughout the rest of the process the way we do now. So it's not, I mean, it sounds like it's a big deal, but in reality, for the department heads to get their budget in a couple of weeks early is not. We know it's coming. We know July 1 what we've got to do, and we've got to have our budgets. We pretty much, most of us are working on those budgets, you know, way before they're due. They're ready to rock and roll before they're due because we know they're coming. So to do it, I don't think it's going to have a big effect on that, and the rest of it's going to just flow the way it flows now. And the other side of that too, and I don't mean to bring it up, but sitting in the audience at the FTM, there were a lot of people who were pushing for wanting the all-day referendum. They want the all-day ref, and the way that they get an amendment is they reject the budget, and then it has to come back to the council, and the council votes with another, because you're gonna have to have another meeting and go through the process. That's why we're moving it back to the May date, so you can get those things done. And you go forward and work it that way. You make those adjustments that they're looking for based on, if they reject the budget, it means they wanna make a change to it. And we've got the time to make those changes.
Okay, my turn. Everyone's had ample time to make their comments, and I think we know where people stand. My point is, I asked, and I know other council people, like the majority, wanted to have this on the ballot for November. And it's not new, and it's not hurrying. In '84, when I was a councilman, I said, what is a town that this size doing with a FTM? Some people call it a financial town meeting. I've always referred to it as a fiasco town meeting. It's always either special interest groups for or special interest groups against. It's either to add or subtract. Again, we are voted as council people by our citizens, the 25,000 voters, to make a decision. We go through the process of all the directors every year, all the years I've been on the council, come forward with the town manager, whoever that person is at the time, and state their case. We decide the budget up or down each department. People are invited to come, and they can make their opinions as individual, making their opinions unelected, and then that's it. Then the town manager makes his recommendation to the council. The council has their obligation and duties as elected and appointed by the people to make their vote. And all this is doing is putting the budget that the council approves to the people, and not 171 2 years ago, 500 and whatever this last year, up and down, whether it's 2 years on a evening of one night, or 4 hours, or this past case, 6 hours. And this didn't all come to my mind because of this past June. Although that was a fiasco, there's been others not necessary. And as Councilperson Vice President LaBossiniere said, it can't fluctuate anyhow above 180, 190. I guess this year was 202,000. And then it has to go to an all-day referendum anyhow. So what's the deal? We can make decisions. The departments all make their opinions, requests. The town manager, whoever that person is, makes a recommendation to the council. The council's elected to make a decision on the budget. We're the largest town that still has this archaic system. It's called a financial town meeting. Like ring the cowbell and bring in the voters, whoever shows up. And they decide for 25,000 voters, or 37,000 people if you count the kids. And I think that is ridiculous. I always have, I always will. But this will let the people decide. If the people don't want to change it, God bless them. I'm okay with that. But they had the right to change it. If nothing else, me living in Coventry for 39 years, and starting on the council 34 years, and having 8 years, 2 years, 2 years, and God bless 3 more months, 4 years, and I wish everybody luck. But I support this ballot question. Let the people decide if they still want that system, which that cost, and that changes, and then if it doesn't, another cost. In fact, I think we had 3 meetings, 2 financial town meetings. I mean, add that $30,000 with people, personnel, Board of Elections, police officers, fire department, to decide what, $200,000? No, thank you. I personally think this is a good thing, and it's not taking away the initiative of the voters. In fact, it's doing what we're supposed to do, and it's letting the whole town have a say, have the whole town have a vote, and not just within a 2-hour or a 3-hour or a 6-hour clip.
It has all day. All districts will have a say. And again, if they don't approve it, it goes back to the council. And it goes back to the council in time to adjust it again. And we even had probably in May time to adjust it again before the end of June and not go into this 3 meetings fiasco. Are we going to go bankrupt? Are we going belly up? Are we going to have a budget by July 1? And it's not just this last town financial meeting. It's been every one that I've seen in 39 years. Some go smooth, some don't. Let the people, let all the voters decide, not who jams in to either the annex or the high school auditorium and then a different room with TV cameras. Let everybody decide. That's why I want it on the ballot. And everybody can have their own opinion, and council people have a right. And we've let everybody have their 2 cents, and everybody's made their comments. But I personally want to see it on the ballot. And I don't mind going off as a council person and say, hey, at least the people have a say whether they want to continue on this archaic system. This system that lets 171 people, 2 years ago, 600-something people, or 590, decide for 25,000 voters and 37,000 people. They can vote it down. God bless them. Continue on. But I want to see it. All right? At this motion, I mean, at this point, I want to call for a vote, because I think everybody's had their comment. Okay, go ahead, Councilwoman Carlson.
Thank you. Is there a way, Mr. Gorham, to separate this into 2 ballot questions? Changing the financial town meeting to an all-day referendum, and then the issue of not amending publicly the budget, say at the new financial town meeting night, so that, because there's 2 different things we're looking at here. We're looking at changing the FTM, which is fine. All-day referendum will probably get more voters. But the sticking point is still taking away the voters' right. And maybe I'm the only one that thinks that this is a problem, but I think this is a problem for me, that we're taking away the voters' right to amend the budget. Is there a way to separate them? You could vote to change it to an all-day referendum, and you could vote, I don't know, for the format of the amendments. I'm having a hard time with that.
Mr. Gorham?
I guess that's a question.
Sure.
Again, I think we're ready to vote, but add your opinion on that.
Well, she asked me, as
Right.
the solicitor, is there a way to bifurcate the voting process? I think that's what you meant, Member Carlson, so that on the night of the council presentation, you could have a bunch of motions, and then you would still have the all-day referendum. You could do that. You could do that. But then, I mean, it's
goes back to the same
it's a
way it is
policy
now.
question, which is, what are you really looking for? Are you looking for broader participation, or are you looking for a 2-day voting process, one for amendments and then another with the referendum? It's just a question of the council.
Yeah, the night of the meeting, I think that's what you're saying, the financial meeting, I guess, to introduce the budget to everyone before the all-day referendum, that night, the voters will be able to make motions to either remove, and then you get that all set, and then you have the all-day referendum on the school and the town budgets.
Can I make a comment on that, Mr.
Yeah.
President?
Yeah.
I guess-
It could be
have
done,
you
I think.
answered?
Well, it could be done. The question is whether the the town council wants that to be.
Right,
put
how
in
is that any
question.
different from how it is now?
Yeah, I think that's true. It's really not gonna change the format of what we're doing now. I think,
Absolutely not.
Councilman LaBarson said it great. It's 0.2% of the budget. A $200,000 increase this past year or decrease was the maximum we could change. It has such a minimal effect. I think we need to let our department heads and our elected officials do their job. I mean, it's such a minute, if it went any more than 200, it would be an all-day referendum or anything. You make it sound like we're really not trying to take the people's rights to speak. They elected us to do this job, to present them with a budget. We're not trying to take anything away. We're trying to give them the right to say, yeah, let's do it or let's not do it. I mean, it really, we're not trying to take things away like it's perceived. It really isn't. It's such a minute, amount of money.
The problem that I perceive with that, Member Carlson, that is having this bifurcated process where on day one, you can have a nighttime meeting or whatever and allow amendments. And then after all those amendments, that budget goes to the all-day referendum. But I think it's a question of policy that the council has to answer. Does the council want to put their budget to the people, or do they want to put their budget to the people after what is typically a very small group has had an opportunity to change the budget, sometimes not at all, but sometimes significantly, so that there's a pretty good chance that a significant amount of the times the town council budget never gets to the people.
Right.
And I think like I said, it's a matter of priorities and compromises. If you do it that way, somebody could make a pretty good argument that you are compromising the will of the people to have their budget presented through their elected officials so that they can vote on it. It's a matter of opinion every way you look at it. And I think, we can all respectfully disagree with each other on what the best way to do it is. But I know one thing, if you let the people have a go at this, you're letting them decide, which seems to be the reigning theme tonight anyway, is let the people decide. This is definitely one way to do it.
Okay,
Councilman LaBarson, another comment.
Well, just a personal thought that I personally feel that, for instance, if this budget that was presented this year had a 4% tax increase on the levy, the total amount that was presented to the people at an all-day referendum, the schools wouldn't have gotten an extra $200,000. I think the whole thing would have been shot down and would have come back to us by a negative vote. My personal feeling. Nobody wants to get a 4% tax increase. We showed the reasons why at public hearings. The schools presented their cases, etc. What we did, we made some adjustments there, very small amount, a couple of $100,000, knocked it down a bit, and then it ended up going back at the at the FTM for the people who felt as though the schools didn't get what they wanted. If that went to an all-day referendum the way it was this year, like I said, I think it would have got shot down, maybe for different reasons, but that was just my personal thoughts.
Okay.
Again, we've had ample time to discuss this. We discussed it last council meeting, and we've had a motion to approve it, Mr. Gorham, and as amended, and we're ready to vote as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So again, we respect everyone's opinion about taking either letting everyone vote or taking voters' rights away. Let the people decide in November whether they want to keep it the way it is, which is certainly their choice, or fine-tune it in that let everyone decide more than a 2-hour, 3-hour, or 6-hour into after midnight process all day long. All 5 districts will be represented as far as able to vote. And the council will be able to put a budget amount, after hearing from the town manager and all the directors, what we feel is fair and good for the people, and then the people will have a right to vote. So at that point, I'd like to ask for a vote. All in favor of this suggestion and resolution, say aye.
Adding to the bottom.
And of course, adding the changes.
To the
I
changes
think
to the ballot.
I've said that 3 times.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay, 3-2 to put this on the ballot. And again, legally, we've had it reviewed, and we are able to, and that's our council decision. So, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a